Hello everyone and welcome back to the Belgian Beer Brothers channel. Today is Sunday and my name is still Cedric, and today we are crossing borders again. We're actually even crossing oceans because we're having an American beer. As you know, as I already told you guys, I'm a rock climber and I'm always on the lookout for a decent alcohol-free beer. Like I said, never drink and climb. Apparently there are some like-minded people, because the beer we are talking about today, the Flying Start, love the can by the way, nice design. Flying Start was developed by not just Boulevard Brewing Co, but it's a collaboration with Athletic Brewing Co. What can I tell you about these breweries? Well, actually quite a lot. Let's start with Athletic. They are the youngest and they are actually a specialty brewery. They are specialized in alcohol-free beers. They aren't just specialized, they only make alcohol-free beers. The guys that started the brewery have two core values that they share, and that is mainly a healthy athletic lifestyle, but also a love for good beer. And these two guys, let's start at the start. In 2013, Bill Schufeld actually stopped drinking alcohol. He felt like he compromised his healthy lifestyle by drinking alcohol, so he stopped. And of course, like me, he was always on the lookout for a decent alcohol-free beer. But he actually, he didn't like the watery, metallic, flavorless, classic non-alcoholic beers. There used to be this, almost certainty that if you got a non-alcoholic beer, it will be one of two things, and either it was quite watery and metallic, or it was very sweet, like a malt lemonade. And he didn't like that, so he started dreaming about developing his own beer. Now, he got to talking with a Santa Fe head brewer called John Walker, and they met up and they started homebrewing test batches. Apparently they made more than 100 test batches, and when they perfected their recipe, let's say, they started a brewery. Now I say they perfected their recipe. Actually, they didn't just perfect their recipe, they turned the whole procedure of alcohol-free brewing upside down, and they don't go into much detail, unfortunately, because I'm very interested in how they do it. Anywho, so they started brewing in Stratford, Connecticut, and they found a building. And in 2017, they actually started the brewery. Now, this was quite a special event in beer land, because it was the first ever dedicated non-alcoholic brewery. Currently there are two in the entire world, and they're both owned by Athletic, because they opened a second brewery in California, in San Diego to be exact. They bought Ballast Point Brewing Co. and repurposed it to a alcohol-free brewery, and that was in 2020. But they started in 2017, and they started small. Actually, they only sold to 7 or 9 local shops, and they weren't even sure that this was gonna be sustainable for the company. Apparently it was, because soon thereafter they expanded and they started selling in the whole state, even the whole country, and then they started exporting as well, hence how I got my hands on one. Apparently in 2019 they started exporting to foreign countries, export, foreign, of course. And they had a net worth of $2.5 million in only 2 years. Now, they kept growing and they kept growing. From 2019 to 2020, they grew to 37,500 barrels production and to $15 million. So that is sixfold. They even conquered a market share of over 60% in the alcohol-free beer market. In 2021, after the acquisition of Ballast Point, they grew to 100,000 barrels production and 37 million. So again, times 3, which made them the second fastest growing food and beverage company in the whole of the US. They were also voted one of the 100 most influential. They had 26th place on the list of most influential companies in the world. Yeah, one hell of a job in 4 years. Also in 2021, well, they were making a lot of money anyway, so they expanded their Connecticut brewery to a 200,000 barrel capacity. This means that they could put out 6 million cases of beer per year, which is quite a lot. Now, the guys that started this, Bill Shufelt and John Walker, aren't just beer lovers, they are also outdoor fans. They are athletic guys, and amongst other things, they love trail running and hiking. So they started their a good cause called Two for the Trails, and it's actually what the name says. 2% of all sales go to restoring and protecting local trails. I say local, but apparently they do this all over the world. Also, not only entrepreneurs invested in Athletic Brewing Co., but many athletes invested there as well. For example, J.J. Watt, the American football player, and Lance Armstrong, the cyclist, invested some money in Athletic Brewing Co. Now, this is a collaboration. It's in fact a Boulevard beer. You can see this by the way the can is designed, because actually the athletic products, and I don't mean this in a bad way, mainly remind me of Aquarius, like sports water. I see this in many things. For example, their logo is a big A with some grain in it, but the big A, of course, the swooshed center line, it reminds me of Aquarius. If you look at the other athletic products, their cans, their colors, their merchandise even, basically everything breeds sports, of course, but does remind me again of Aquarius. I think this is well thought through as well. Of course, they're aiming for the same public. Now, the other brewery on this can is Boulevard. Boulevard Brewing Co. got its name very simply because it is on Southwest Boulevard in Kansas City. And Boulevard Brewing Co. is a bit older than many of the previous breweries I talked about. I thought La Chouffe is from 1982. Boulevard started in 1984. Well, actually, I'm lying. The story starts in 1984. John McDonald, a young man, just finished school, traveled Europe, and while he was in Europe he had a bunch of beers. Why? Well, he was from Kansas City, and apparently there were about a dozen craft breweries in the 70s in Kansas City, but then industrialization struck Kansas City as well, and they all closed down and got repurposed into factories. So the only beers that Kansas had were very homogeneous, a lot of the same, like a lager, a pale ale, and a lager. So he traveled Europe and he had many craft beers, and one of these beers that inspired him was our old friend Duvel. And I'll come back later in the story. He went back home and he couldn't get used to the Unity beers in Kansas anymore, or in the US in general. So he dreamed of making his own beer, or finding a way of getting those Belgian and those European beers over the ocean into the US. He started working as a carpenter, and he couldn't get his hands on good beer, so he started homebrewing as well. Then in 1988, John is ready to take it to the next level, and he wants to start his own brewery. Now, of course, when he goes to sponsors to ask for funds, they go like, "You want to do what?" All the breweries had shut down and he wanted to start a new one. Either this was genius or crazy. So in 1988 he found a 60-year-old building, a 1929 brick building that used to be the Santa Fe Railroad laundry building. He bought it and he repurposed it. He put in a nice Bavarian brewery, a Bavarian brew house that he bought secondhand and had a capacity of 35 barrels. Now, he got that up and running in November of 1989, and he pumped out his first batch of Boulevard Pale Ale. Now, he started with only draft beer, which was a merely financial choice, because this is a hard sell. You have to convince every bar and restaurant owner not only to sell your beer, but to have it on tap and to buy it per barrel, per 50 liters. That's a lot, and they have to abandon their previous supplier. So, needless to say, he started saving up for a bottling line. Can't sell kegs in supermarkets, but bottling lines are very expensive. The initial goal of Boulevard Brewing Co was to produce about 6,000 barrels per year. So about 1,000 per week, 1,100 per week. By the third year, they already surpassed the 7,000 barrels. And by 2004, so 15 years later, they were producing about 100,000 barrels per year. Now, of course, this was way above capacity, or actually the high limit of this 35 barrel brewing hall. If you make 6,000 barrels, you have to put out 200 brews. That means one a day for 200 work days in a year. if you go to 100,000 barrels, that's quite a bit more. So, a lot happened in those years. In 1999, something that I'm particularly proud of, is Stephen Powell's joins Boulevard. Stephen Powell's, we will be talking about that man later on, I think when I do a video about Tank 7, future. But he was a Belgian brewmaster. A Belgian brewmaster with a lot of history in the beer world, because his father was a brewer as well, and he started out in a Belgian brewery, then led a brew pub, and then went to the States. Without saying too much about Stephen Powell's, he was the man that developed, amongst other things, the Smokestack series from Boulevard. Beautiful, beautiful beers. In 2006, they were still pumping out those 100,000 barrels a year, and this was so at limit capacity that they actually thought of relocating to a bigger building. Of course, this brewery had such ties to that location, and they didn't want to relocate. So what did they do? They laid out $25 million to put in a new building. The new building on site had a new brew house with a capacity of 150 barrels per brew. So goodbye 35 barrel brew house, this was a 150 barrel brew house. Okay, 5-fold capacity. Of course that draws attention, and about 10 years later, 2014, Duvel Moortgat got wind and they bought the brewery. Now, John McDonald stayed on and led the brewery for a while, but everyday business came to Duvel Moortgat. Now, what does Duvel Moortgat do? They look at a brewery that works, they keep it as is and just expand a bit. They don't change anything. Like they say, never change a winning team, or if it ain't broken, don't fix it. What does Moortgat do? By the way, callback, remember John McDonald and his heart for Duvel. So we came full circle here. What does Moortgat do? They pump in money just to streamline things. So in 2014, Moortgat buys out Boulevard, and in 2016 they start expanding. For example, they put in an extra building with 6 1,000 barrel fermentation tanks. So they increased fermentation capacity with 40%. That's quite huge. Also, they built a tours and recreation center. So they started giving tours. They made a beautiful building, a visitor center, a bar, all those things. Now in 2018, 2 years later, they built a 24,000 square feet canning line or canning hall, and they put in a high-speed canning line that blows out 350 cans per minute. That's a monster. In 2019, the Tours and Rec Center is expanded again. They don't just put in an extra room, no, they put on an extra floor, and on top of that a rec deck. They put in tabletop games, some meeting rooms, anything you'd like for a rec center. And yeah, now we're here. So time for us to taste that beer. Of course, with two breweries working together, this becomes a long video, so we're looking at about 30 minutes now. What can I say about the beer? Well, not that much. It is called Flying Start. It is developed by athletic fans and beer fans. So their slogan is quite fun. New year, new you. And what's on the can? It says Near Beer. Brewed and packaged by Athletic Brewing Co. in collaboration with Boulevard Brewing Co. Okay. Came out of Stratford. Of course, I have read up on this beer. It is a IPA and it uses Munich and pale malts and wheat. As we all know by now, wheat gives us that extra mouthfeel. So I think it's quite a good idea to compensate for a lighter beer with wheat. They aromatize it with curacao or orange peel, dried orange peel. And they used Magnum, Amarillo, Cascade, Eldorado, Citra hops in the brewing process and dry hopped it with more Eldorado and Galaxy hops. Now I must admit I don't know all of these hops. I do know Amarillo, Cascade, Citra and Magnum. Those are very fruity and very citrusy and very aromatic hops. I don't know either of the dry hops, so the Eldorado and the Galaxy. I have heard of Eldorado, haven't worked with it. I don't know if I've ever tasted it, so it's gonna be a surprise for me as well. But I do find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hop variants. That's a lot. They didn't spare one penny here. I don't know about athletics, but I do have my trusty Boulevard glass here. Okay, very aromatic, yet quite thin in the nose. Very pleasant though. Indeed, a bit citrusy, a bit sweet. I don't get the papaya, mango, tropical thingies. I do get a very fresh fruit salad here. Very, very clear. Small glass. Whoops. I do love this can with the flowers and the kites. Very slight, thin veil in the glass. Some nice purling. And very white foam. Unfortunately, very large bubbles as well, so it dissipates very, very quickly. Got some more fruit aromas. Got some pear and some green apple. Still very sweet in the nose, and slightly herbal up aromas, which I didn't expect here. A nice golden yellow color. Oh, even got some yeast in there, some flakes. That's awesome. Very thin mouthfeel. So unfortunately it comes across as quite watery. So the wheat trick wasn't enough to create a nice full mouthfeel. I do get a quite, a broad hop palette, but the dominant flavors here are mainly citrus. So I'm leaning towards the Cascade, Citra, Amarillo hops. Yeah, I'm not very excited about this. I was very excited about this because of how it was developed and the story behind it. But I must say that I am not a fan. No, I wouldn't say that I'd order this again. Nope. I'm not gonna say that it's bad, but it's absolutely not to my liking. I see the appeal in this, but this doesn't feel like a nice beer, like a nice refreshment. So, no, the search goes on. Unfortunately, I had such high hopes for you. Oh, such a shame, because I like the athletic story and I am a Boulevard fan, so bugger. Still not bad though. Schade, such a shame. Anywho, of course I'm not gonna pour it down the drain. I will finish this. If you guys have any recommendations about alcohol-free beers, if you guys have tried this or the other athletic products or Boulevard products, let me know in the comments. I am very, very curious because I can't get my hands on all of them. I can get some here, but I can't get all of them. Of course, if you want to send me some, that's appreciated too. No, I'm just kidding. Let me know in the comments if you like this video. Hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, if you want to join me on my search for non-alcoholic beers or any other beer, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you'll get notified when I upload something. And I will see you guys again on Wednesday with a rather special episode because it's a throwback. You will see what I mean when I upload that one. Anywho, cheers you guys, and I will see you in the next video.